Envision this. It's Friday night in a tidy split-level home in suburban Denver, and the clock strikes 8 p.m. as Derek Harlan, a 41-year-old IT specialist and father of two, sits at the kitchen table under the harsh glow of a single bulb, his laptop screen casting shadows on unpaid bills, fanned out like accusations. His wife, Kara, a part-time teacher, scrolls job listings on her phone, their 14-year-old daughter practicing piano faintly in the next room, a melody that feels increasingly like a fragile echo of better days. Derek's latest paycheck hit the account that morning, $3,200 after taxes, but after rent, groceries, and the car payment that ballooned with last year's rates, it's already vaporized into overdraft alerts pinging like distant thunder. What if the AC quits tomorrow? He whispers, voice cracking as he eyes the empty envelope where an emergency fund once dreamed of residing. No buffer, no breather, just the razor-edge math of making next week's deposit or dipping into credit that charges 24% interest. This isn't recklessness. It's the quiet catastrophe of 2025 for Derek, and 24% of U.S. households teetering without a dime, and emergency savings where wage gains whisper at 4.2%, while the gnaw of daily costs leaves middle-class dreams dangling by a thread. As Kara squeezes his hand, the unspoken fear hangs. One flat tire, one layoff whisper, and the house of cards collapses. Derek stares at the ceiling, wondering how a decade of steady climbs led here to nights where sleep evades because tomorrow's peril feels too close. Stay with me, because this paycheck peril isn't Derek's anomaly. It's the muffled alarm echoing through 68% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, where zero buffers are end failure but the fierce arithmetic of survival in a year when savings rates dipped to 4.6%, and real wages inched just 2.5% ahead of inflation's shadow. We'll unpack the hush of this anxiety, the stories that breathe behind the stats, and the glimmers of grit that keep families afloat when the edge feels endless. This is the paycheck peril, the invisible vice clamping down on middle America's middle, where the grind of stagnant feeling wages despite a 4.2% nominal bump from July 2024 to 2025 leaves households like Derek's chasing tails in a hamster wheel of bills that outrun every deposit. From office parks where coffee breaks buzz with veiled worries, to family minivans idling in drive-through lines rationing fast food math, it has a chronicle carved in late-night calculators and the soft sigh of "we'll figure it out." With over 10 years trailing these tensions, from assembly lines where overtime as a myth to cubicles humming with hushed side hustle plots, I've felt the pulse of how a flat wage curve can hollow out hope. Here we allow navigate it, not as fiscal footnotes but as the raw rhythm of lives on the brink. The bottled frustrations that bubble unseen, the resourceful pivots that patch the leaks, and the quiet yearnings for a safety net that catches before the fall. The ledger starts stark, a mirror no one lingers before. The Bureau of Labor Statistics pegs average weekly earnings up 4.2% year over year through July 2025, outpacing the 2.7% CPI inflation creep, yet real take-home power grew a modest 2.5%. Enough for a weekly $30 nudge, but not the leap to rebuild buffers, eroded by 10.4% over 16 months, leaving average liquid assets at $9,869 per household. The personal savings rate? A whisper-thin 4.6% in August, down from 4.8% in July, and well below the 8.4% long-term average. As the Federal Reserve's 2024 Well-Being Report echoed into 2025 trends shows only 55% of adults stashing 3 months' worth, with 18% handling under $100 in crises. Bankrate's November 2025 survey cuts deeper. 24% of U.S. adults hold zero emergency savings, 32% have less than at New Year's, and a stark 18% started the year with nothing and stayed there, figures that swell to 37% unable to cover $400 surprise without borrowing or selling. Empower's June poll mirrors the void. 32% with no fund at all, median stash a meager $500, and 29% paralyzed by anything over $400 trends holding firm into December as wage growth cools to 3.9% for the year to June. These aren't outliers. They're the undercurrent for 68% paycheck-to-paycheck dwellers, where 25% scrape just to settle monthly tabs. Lean into the lives ledgered by this ledger, and the strain etches faces you pass daily. Picture Raj Patel, a 35-year-old accountant in Seattle, where tech layoffs linger like fog. In a coffee shop sit-down last week, he mapped his marginless map. My salary ticked 4% last raise, but after daycare and that 2.7%. Inflation bite, I'm treading water $2,000 monthly outgo on a $75,000 income. No room for the $500. Vet bill that hit like a brick. Raj embodies the bank rate void. 24% bufferless. His story sinking with the 30% who, per the Fed, couldn't float 3 months without unraveling. Or meet Carla Ruiz, 48, a logistics coordinator in Dallas, juggling a $55,000 wage that grew 3.8% but feels frozen against rising utilities. Over park bench confessions, she unfurled her fray. I cut the cable, meal prep rice and beans, yet one kid's braces, quote, attuned to their unrest. And it's an undercurrent of unrestrained underbreath, the sort that doesn't erupt but erodes, like waves on a weary shore. Raj's simmers in spreadsheets at midnight. I crunch numbers for corporations all day, yet mine. A joke, every raise evaporates, leaving me furious at the mirror for not hustling harder. It's the bite of budgeting birthdays on credit, pride pricked by the what-if that wakes him sweating. Carla's coils tighter, in the grocery line where she skips the cart. It's infuriating working doubles, yet one feverish night for the kids, and we're begging favors. Not poor, but perilously close, resenting a system that dangles security like a mirage. Across the map, Pimmons logs the lament. 50% stressed over scant savings, 8% overspending just to breathe. A chorus of quiet curses at clocks that tick toward tipping points. This ire isn't incendiary. It's the insidious itch of invisibility. Parents plotting piggy banks while plotting pivots, haunted by the hollow of stable turned suspect. Yet in this vice, vitality surges, the unyielding urge to append the urn of unease. Families like Derek's don't dissolve. They distill, distilling desperation into deliberate designs. He has woven a rainy day round robin with neighbors. Pooled $20 weekly into a group kitty, now $800 strong for shared shocks, inspired by community resilience models that buffer 25% of blows per local co-op studies. Feels communal, not charitable, he notes. Tallying tabs with a trust that's tougher than titanium. Pivots persist, but they're plasters on pulses pounding for permanence, a scaffold for swells yet to crest. Throngs tethered to threads like employer EAPs, counseling 20% of users to fortified funds via mediated matches. Or apps automating 5% drips into buffers. As Yale Budget Lab blueprints shave stress by reclaiming 12% through microtrims. Households harbor horizons. Expanded access to low-fee credit unions, where 30% boost balances via shared risk pools. Or workplace wellness tying bonuses to buffers, potentially padding 1 million pots by 2026 per Fidelity forecasts. Nonprofits knit now. Financial clinics diverting 40% from debt spirals. Echoing FRXC's recession rebounds that rebuilt reserves 25% faster. The Vista? Streamlined savers tools, AI alerts nixing $50 leaks. Monthly and cultural shifts to revenge saving, spiking rates from 3.5% December lows to 4.5% May highs, chasing a cushioned 6% norm. They aspire not to affluence but anchor a ledger where IT codes compile security, where teachers tally tomorrows without trepidation. As Kara confided, stirring soup from Staples, we crave the calm of covered, where a whisper of windfall isn't wreckage. If Derek's ledger laments, Raj as resolute recalcs, or Carla has coiled courage called to your own cliffside counts, let that kinship kindle nudge like to notch these narratives higher or chime in comments with the tweak that tethered your tiller this term. And should this peril's pulse thrum true, subscribe to the American Pulse and chime the bell. United, we're not merely marking the margin, we're mending it, one measured mile at a time. But the peril prowls past the paycheck. Next on the American Pulse, we probe healthcare cost crush. 67% of Americans ditching doctor visits. Due to 2025 price surges. We'll expose the debt daisy chains delaying diagnoses, where chronic shadows lengthen unchecked in the squeeze of surging premiums. It's the ache you anticipate but ache to avoid. Align with us, sustain the surge.